So this is the login screen I'm going to show you how to make. It's pretty simple in its implementation right now, but it has a few behaviors that I believe users would expect, and it just kind of makes sense from a user experience point of view. For example, when this screen opens, the focus automatically gets set to user. The user will type their name in, hit return, focus then shifts to the password. The user begins typing in their password, and you can see here that there's some measure of how strong this password is. Once they hit 8 characters, they're good to go, and we can begin the login process, and it'll shift. Basically, it'll give an indication that we're logging in, and now that we're logged in. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do that. This is basically the miniature version of that, and I'm going to show you how to convert this to the final product. So basically, we've got a text field here for the username. We've got a secure field for the password, which is basically the same thing except that it has these hidden characters. And we've got our button for the login. So the first thing I'm going to do before I start working on the focus field is I'm going to take these views out of the body of my view here and create them in their own function, their own view builder function. So I'll say private func build username text field, returning some view, and all I'm going to do is just copy it and paste this. And the reason I'm doing this is it's going to make it a lot easier to continue working on these in a readable way. It'll make it easier to maintain, and especially as we add more modifiers, it'll be a lot less complex to work on. So we'll do the same thing with our secure field. We'll say view builder, private func build password text secure field, returning to us some view. Oops. There's our secure field. And lastly, we've got our button here. View builder, private func, build login button, some view, paste. All right, so now instead of having all that in the body, we can just simply say build user text field, build password text field, and build our login button. Okay. You'll see it. It'll make it easier in the end. So the first thing we can do is work on our focus state. So we're going to create an enum because we have two things that we want to focus on. Typically you could use a Boolean to say whether a text field should be focused or not, but because we want to maintain focus and switch from username to password, we're going to create an enum instead. We'll say private enum focusable field, and we're going to have two cases, username and a password, and we're going to have also a focus state property here, private var focus field is a focusable field, and that's going to be optional. Now when this app starts, we're going to assign that focus field to our username. Then we'll have a function that will shift that focus to the password, which we're going to add in a second. We will say func assign first focus. And you don't really need to do this. You could just add, you could assign this focus within this navigation stack, but we'll just do it for now because it'll be more customizable for you in the future and a little bit more flexible for us. So we'll assign that focus field, which we created right here, to our username, and we'll say our assign next focus field. We're going to create a switch for that focus field, and we'll say, what are we going to say? We're going to say focus field equals password. I'll explain this in a second. Password is nil, and for nil is break. So once we hit submit on the keyboard, we'll call assign the next focus field. If it's already on username, it'll go to password. If it's on password and we hit it again, we will assign that nil so that it'll basically disengage the keyboard. We'll say focus field equals nil. So we want to dismiss the keyboard basically. And now within the body of our view, we've got a problem. Focus field. Okay, yeah, we're good. Now in the body of our view, we're going to assign the focus field on appear. So when this appears, we're going to perform our assign first focus, which is our username. Okay, so it'll start right here. And on submit, so when the user hits submit on the keyboard, we are going to assign our next keyboard or our next focus. And actually, instead of that, what we can do is just do this. Make it a little cleaner. All right. And now it's not working right now because we need to go into our text field and assign the focus. So what we'll say is our focus field equals username. So now this is going to be watching the focus field, and when it equals username, it will begin automatically focusing, bringing up the keyboard and showing it to the user. So we're going to say the same thing for our password, except we're going to change this to password. Okay. And then there you go. So they can type in their name, hit enter on the keyboard, or, it doesn't show in the simulator, like I said, but they'll hit submit. It'll switch to the password. You type in your password. There you go. You're good. Now, if you notice in the simulator, as I'm tapping this, it's changing the outline. So we're going to do that next. So in our text field and our secure field, we just said, give it an overlay, a stroke of gray, line width 1. So it always has that line width of 1. We're going to change that so that if it's not currently selected, it has a line width of 0. So we'll start in the username field. We'll say, this is actually wrong, line width of 1, right? Okay. So we will say focus field is equal to username. So this is called a ternary operator. Basically, we can say if focus field is equal to username, give it a line width of 1, or if not, give it a line width of 0. So now you can see if I click away, it goes away. So it's just kind of another visual indicator to the user about which field is currently being selected. So I will copy that whole thing and I will paste it here in the overlay for our secure field. Except I'm going to change this to password. And now, much better indicator about which field you're on currently. Okay. We're ready to start working on this password indicator. Again, in the simulator, assuming we've got less than 8 characters, we're going to turn everything red. So we're going to turn this outline stroke red, as well as we're going to be building this. And then switch it to green when we hit that 8 character limit. So we're going to create, we'll create it up here. This is going to be a calculated property. We'll say private var password strength is a CG float. And we're going to take our password property here. We're going to say password.count, and we're going to divide that by 8, which is, we're just hard coding it for now, but you could have whatever logic you want in this. And as long as it returns a CG float, you could say, maybe calculate like how many special characters, or that they have at least one, or maybe that they need an uppercase or a lowercase letter to successfully log in or sign in, if you want to call this sign in. This won't work because we need to call this we need to convert it to a CG float before dividing it by 8. But now as we type in our password, we're going to take the amount of characters, divide it by 8, and you'll see that reflected in this value right here. So you'll see it manually changing as we type it in. All right, so we're calculating the strength of our password. We're also going to set a color for the password field. So we'll say private var, this is another calculated property, password field color, which is a color. And we're going to do a switch, another switch, for our password count. And we're going to give a range of values here. So say if there are 0, if the password.count is equal to 0, we want to return the default value, which is going to be our gray, basically what it is now. We'll say if the case is 1 through 7, we'll say return red. And if the case is 8, or actually instead of saying that, we'll say defaults is return green. Okay, so we've got that correct, which we did as we're typing it in. It'll switch from gray to red to green. So there are 2 calculated properties, one for the progress, one for the color. We'll do the easy one first, which is the color of our outline. We hard-coded this color. This is within our secure field for our password. We hard-coded it before as gray, but now we're going to say our password field color. So hopefully we'll see it becomes active. We type, it becomes red, and once it hits 8, it'll be automatically changing to green. So that is good. This is also where we're going to add this little circle indicator to tell the user how close they are to hitting that 8 number, 8-digit range, whatever. So we're going to say we're going to add an H stack. This is a horizontal stack overlaid on top. We will say, let me just pull this up on my other document, make sure I get it right. 1 second. Within this H stack, we're going to add a spacer, and that's going to push our circle over here. And to create this, we're going to create a Z stack with with a circle and a stroke of ultra thin material, line width of 5. So it'll draw it. It's going to be a little bit wrong right now because we didn't constrain it within a frame. So the first thing we're going to add a frame to our Z stack. So we'll say frame width 20, height 20, which will get us closer to what we want. But now you can see it's pushing up against the side of that H stack. So we're going to add some padding there. And now you can start to see why we moved this from the body of our view, because it gets a little bit more complex and much harder to read. So this is looking good now. The Z stack, basically, one is going to sit on top of the other. So we're going to create another circle, copy this. But for this one, we're going to change a few things. First, we're going to replace the color of this with our password field color, which you remember is this calculated property up here. We're also going to add a gradient to that. Okay, so now it's gray, but you'll see. Okay, we've got a few things to add before we do that. We're going to add trim from 0 to our password progress. So this is a CG floats of our progress, our password strength. So we'll say password strength. And now hopefully the trim should be 0 here. As we begin typing the password, you'll see it begin to fill out and complete. Now the only problem, if you caught it, was that it starts right here. It should start at the top. So we're going to need to rotate it. We'll say rotate effect. Did I rotation effect of init degrees -90. So that should rotate it -90 degrees. And you see it starts at the top, fills out, changes color as it becomes complete and strong enough. Last thing we can do to make it a little bit nicer, we'll add an animation. We'll use the ease out animation, ease out, for the value of our password strength. Password strength. So as the password strength changes, this will animate the change to that, the trim that we're adding to this circle. So you can see, very nice now. We hit 8 characters. We're all good to go. We are now able to log in. Currently, this button does nothing. We're done with the password for now. We can now reflect this login state. So we're going to have 3 states. We're going to have when the user opens the app, it'll be logged out. We're not logged into the app at all. Then we're going to have a secondary process called logging in, and that's when you would hit up your API to validate the username and password and whatever else you want. And then lastly, we're going to have a third state, which is logged in. So we're going to create another enum. I'm going to close all these things right now. We'll call it private enum login state with 3 cases. There's probably a better way to name these, but I'm going to say logged out, logging in, and logged in. So there's 3 states for us, and we're going to create another state value. Private var login state is our login state enum. And like I said, we're going to begin logged out. Okay. We're going to go back into this view builder function for our button. Currently, we only had a text label just called login, which does not reflect the value of whatever state we're in. So we're going to create another switch statement for our login state. And that's going to give us all 3 states. So we're going to return different views for all of these. We'll take our text login for our logged out. When we're logging in, we'll say a progress view, which is basically that spinning wheel that Apple gives us. And for logged in, we'll say text will give us a nice thumbs up. All right. Now we have all these modifiers from the text view that we had in our label. We're going to copy this foreground style for our text right here. And we're going to give a tint to this progress view. We'll take the rest of these and we'll apply that on the outside of our label right here. So we won't see the change yet because this function doesn't do anything, but we're going to simulate logging into an app by creating another function. We'll create private func initiate login, and we're going to call this asynchronous, just like you would if you were hitting up an API. And for this, what we're going to do is we're going to, as soon as we tap this button, we're going to change the login state to logging in. We are attempting to log in. Let me just see how I wrote this here. Give me 1 second. And then we're going to say, I'm not going to implement an API here, but I will say try await task dot sleep. So basically, we're going to put this task to sleep for 1 billion nanoseconds. And then once we have gotten our API request back that it was successful, we're going to change the login state back to, or not back to, but logged in. So we are successfully logged in. So we're changing, this is, did I spell this wrong? Lowercase. Logged in. So we hit the button, we attempt to log in, we fake our response here, we fake this wait time, and then we return a successful login state. And that should push us through the process. Now, this is wrong now because I changed it. It's fine. And we're going to add that login, initiate login with a task, and await that login. So now hopefully if we've done everything correct, we can build this in the simulator. I guess we don't have to. We'll just type in query. We'll type in our password, filling out here. We're good to go. Hit the login. It changes the state, and we've received our API response back. We're good to go. All right, so I hope that was I hope you're able to get something from that. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for watching.